Hello, and thank you very much for joining us. My name is Merle Massey. I'm the coordinator for undergraduate research here at the University of Saskatchewan. One of the programs that I run is SURE, so Student Undergraduate Research Experience. And this session today is part of the overall SURE program. It is the last in the entrepreneurship series that has been developed by Research Excellence and Innovation. And with us today, we have a very special guest, and we're really excited. Serese Selanders is with us today. And actually, Serese, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and go from there.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Merle. I really appreciate it and the opportunity to be able to speak to you. I see some people live here, which is great, and I understand it's going to be accessible after the presentation. So awesome. So as said, my name is Serese Selanders, and I am the founder and CEO of Aura and SolusGuard. And I'm actually going to go into that in a fair bit of detail in the presentation. So I'm just going to do that now. So let's go straight to the presentation for everybody. Okay, awesome. So thanks again for having me. I was asked today to talk about pitching and being a tech entrepreneur, pitching a lot. This is what I do and have been doing from day one. It's a very interesting topic that people I think have different perspectives on. And what you see like in competitions and all that sort of stuff, I think people have a preconceived notion. So when I was putting this together, I was thinking, okay, well, there's pitching, like the sexy version of it, and then there's real pitching. So today we're going to be talking mostly about real pitching, and I'll explain what that is. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me, just to give you some context as to who I am, why I can speak about this, and how I got to this situation in the first place. So I became an entrepreneur largely because of this person. This is my father. A few years back with my nephews, I always laugh at this picture. It's kind of blurry and the kids are all over the place, and because that's my nephews. But he is the reason and the inspiration why I got started into this journey. I'll explain more in a minute, but introducing you to my dad is super important to me. So my career prior to this was nowhere near startup, nowhere near tech, nowhere near entrepreneurship, nothing like that. I was riding the proverbial or climbing the proverbial corporate ladder, selling life insurance and mutual funds, working for Affinity Credit Union, wonderful employer, doing all of these things. This is what I was doing in my life. I was taking the MBA, which I got from Edwards School of Business at the U of S. This is all part of my life and in my journey. But what ended up happening is in this situation, my life took a pretty major curveball. And what happened is my mom got sick unexpectedly and passed away. And a few months later, my dad got very ill, and he had had cancer surgery, and that recovery actually went really, really badly. And we nearly lost him. He nearly passed away. And he had a very, very long recovery. And in that long recovery, a year and a half, he was here in Saskatoon, lived with us, lived in a senior's place, and all he could talk about was wanting to go back home to our hometown, Balmarie, if anybody's ever heard of it, way down south, teeny little town. He just wanted to go back home. That was his main purpose. But the challenge was how can he go back home? How do I know he's going to be safe? I've got brothers in Alberta, so they're not able to help. I'm here in Saskatoon. It's 4.5 hour drive. How do we do that? And so that was the impetus behind, okay, I need to find a way to keep my dad safe and other people like him. So while I'm working at Affinity and while I'm doing the MBA, I'm going down this journey. I have this idea for a device that's going to keep him safe. Well, back then, this is about 7 years ago. Back then, there was no collabs and cultivator. There was no tech community here. There was nothing like that. And so there was nowhere for me to go to figure out, I want to do a tech startup, how to do that. So I kind of flailed around and was trying to figure all that out. But in that process, I created Aura. So Aura was my very first startup. And Aura was a wearable safety device to help keep seniors safe. And it was paired with a smartphone. And in my opinion, of course, but others as well, my opinion is this was a no-brainer because we were up against the traditional medical alert companies, the help I've fallen and can't get up. So we were up against them. So when I compared the two and I said, okay, our device is very small and discreet. It's the one on the right where the jewelry, it's disguised in jewelry or it looks like a belt loop clip. So it's discreet. It doesn't look like a garage door opener or a walkie-talkie, or I don't know what the heck that is that she's wearing. And by the way, whenever you see these traditional medical alert devices and the lady's smiling, that's a pile of load of crap. Do you think somebody would be happy wearing that? Nobody's happy wearing that. They're not. They're going to be happy wearing our jewelry. It's going to work everywhere, not just to a home. And the price is significantly less. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, we've created this technology. Thank you for the laugh, Merle, appreciate it. We created this technology. It's there. It's superior. The price is better. Surely this is just a no-brainer, right? And so we had launched something called an Indiegogo campaign. So for those of you who are thinking of doing a startup, and it doesn't have to be tech, it could be even writing a book. Basically, any sort of startup that you're doing, you can go to a platform called Indiegogo or Kickstarter to pre-fund your concept. So it's a way for people to either invest in you or buy your product at a discount before you go to market. So we had an Indiegogo campaign, and our goal, it said publicly 25,000, but our goal was to raise $1 million because I thought I've created this product, it's amazing. It's, as soon as I offer it, like this thing is going to go viral. Like, how can it not? And so we launched this on Indiegogo and waited to see what would happen. Well, what happened was not what I expected. We sold 8,800 US dollars. A big chunk of it was people I knew and loved ones that were supporting me. And so it was kind of my first red flag to say, oh, maybe this isn't as going to be as successful as we thought it was. However, we were getting a lot of traction. I was winning competitions. We were being featured in all these magazines. We were even in Cosmo. I had a friend call me up and say, hey, you're in Cosmo. I'm like, we're in Cosmo. What the heck? So we were featured everywhere. So we had this initial response was very positive, and we knew we were onto something, but the sales simply weren't there. We were learning a lot about, why this wasn't working. One of the things that was really working and where we were getting some traction was that businesses were looking for ways to keep people safe. And so I thought, okay, well, we've got the consumer side, and then we've got what we call B2B, business to business side. So we created something called Aura Pro. So Aura Pro was intended to be for people who work alone and in dangerous situations. And again, we got some early traction. There was businesses looking to protect their employees. So they were using our panic buttons. I think I forgot to say this. These are panic buttons. You press a button, calls your contacts for help, backup call to 911. I'm talking about pitching, and I'm doing a really crappy job of pitching here. But anyways, I digress. So Aura Pro, we went out there with our panic buttons for businesses. And in this particular case, we thought, well, that should do it, right? You go to the website, are you a business or are you a consumer? And what it did is it actually caused confusion. Family members would come to the site and say, well, are you for businesses? And then businesses would come to the site and say, well, are you for seniors? And we're trying to be too many things to too many people, and it just missed the mark. Nothing was really working. And this became a moment of truth because the writing was on the wall. I could see that neither was really doing well. We learned a lot with Aura. Like, we learned that we were too early to market. The people who are using medical alert devices, the help have fallen and can't get up, are frail elderly. And the frail elderly don't have smartphones because that's what our product requires. It's more technical. So they're not in that space. And younger seniors don't see themselves needing medical alert devices. So it was a really huge hill to climb. Like it's just Aura wasn't going to work. This whole Aura Pro thing wasn't going to work. And I knew we were going to fail. Now, most startups fail. Over 90% of startups fail, tech startups. But it's still, when it's happening to you, it's really hard, like really, really hard to say my startup's going to fail. And so I was going through this experience of, okay, if my startup fails, then what? Then what do I do? And we are a hardware company. So we actually had inventory and we have intellectual property, some technology that I felt that we could sell. So here I am thinking, we're going to fail. I got to sell off the assets. What does that look like? And I have to tell you, when I went through that exercise in my mind, um, it really was like a kick in the pants because I thought if I sell my technology to somebody else and they go and they figure out how to make it be successful, I'd be so upset. Like it would just be heartbreaking to think somebody figured it out. But in going through that mental exercise, it allowed me to say, okay, everything, because I was hanging on to Aura, quite frankly. They say don't get married to your idea. I was married to my idea. And I couldn't see the forest for the trees. I just couldn't see anything else but Aura. But by going through that exercise and thinking that somebody else could take it and be successful, it let me let go of everything that I had done before. It let me set it aside and think completely new and fresh about if I took my technology, because we had invested a lot of money and a lot of time, and we had a really good product. But we said, okay, well, and we had good traction and we had customers. We looked and we said, what are all the things that we're doing well? What are the things that isn't working? And how do we reposition that in the market? So we did something which is called a pivot. And what a pivot is when you have your initial technology, your initial ideas, but you pivot away from the intention to somewhere else. You're not starting over. It's not a brand new idea, but it's a pivot to a new direction. And so we pivoted to SolusGuard. So what is SolusGuard? SolusGuard is a way for businesses to keep their employees safe, kind of like Aura Pro, but much bigger than that. What we've been able to do now is build an end-to-end solution for employers to keep their employees safe. Yes, it includes our panic button. Absolutely. That's our foundation core technology that we have. But now we have software, a check in and out software. We have a command center. So if a company's got back-end solution to manage their own alerts, we've got satellite extenders, we've got all these different things that is a full service solution for businesses. And that's where our core focus is. So this is where we landed with SolusGuard. By the way, Aura still exists, it's sort of treading water, but we don't put any time and effort into it. Our focus is on SolusGuard. I'm talking about me and my company, but I have to tell you that through that entire stage, all the way through, I have no idea how many times I've pitched. No clue, but I can tell you it's a lot. And when I look back to, it's got to be thousands. Really, it does have to be thousands. Only 1% of the time that I did pitching was it on a stage. Because again, people tend to think pitching is when I'm on a stage, I'm competing for money, at least in the tech space. I don't know what your personal experience is, but in the tech space, there's always a competition. And that's what people think. This is what pitching is, right? I'm going to get on a stage, I'm going to pitch for money. Well, 1% maybe is that. The rest of the time, or less than 1%, the rest of the time is not that. And so if you're thinking about getting into any sort of scenario where you're going to have a new venture, you are going to be pitching. And it doesn't have to be a tech startup. It can be any kind of new venture. And there's kind of three categories, if you will, of the situations that you're going to be in. So the first one is going to be what What's the venue? What's the circumstance that you're going to be in? So, as I said, it might be this a stage in front of, and I've been in there, in front of 400 people with a slide deck, and I've got 20 minutes and whatnot. I could have won $100,000. I have won money for sure. Most of the time, though, it's going to be a one-on-one conversation with somebody, or for one moment, or it could be one-on-one conversations with a one or small group of people over a series of time. So your venue is going to change depending on the circumstance. And of course, your audience is going to change. It could be you're pitching to a customer, or you're pitching to the government for funding, or you're pitching to a team member or business partner or your spouse. You're always pitching, believe me. And as well, what is the purpose? Why is it that you're pitching? What is the idea that you're going after? Obviously, if you're in and you're pitching in front of an investor, you're looking for investment funding. It could be, from that perspective. If it's for in front of government for IRAP, you're looking for very specific government funding. Even if you're applying for those sorts of things, you don't automatically get it. Governments, for instance, whether that's WD or whatever program it is, they have limited buckets of cash, and they've got to decide who's going to get that cash. So you're going to be pitching to say, hey, this is why you should fund me. This is why I should be allowed into the program. That's pitching as well. Of which, by the way, if you have your own startup and you're planning this, you need to be looking for these kinds of funding opportunities because they're very, very helpful. You might be on the stage trying to win money. Absolutely. It could be that you're trying to get a lead or ask somebody for a reference or a referral. You're making a sale. I have get your way. Sometimes I'm pitching to my own team to get them to see it my way. Just because I'm the CEO doesn't mean I get my way. We're very collaborative. Or in other ways, it's just to inspire. So what is it about your pitch that you're doing, and really understanding the purpose of that pitch? And by the way, I'm yammering on here with the understanding that I'm going to go through this, and at the end, we're going to take questions. So I'm going to keep on going, but we can always circle back if we need to. So I've shared with you, okay, these are the different ways where you might be pitching, the circumstances and what that might look like. So the question really is, okay, where do I begin? How does one create a pitch to begin with? Well, it's going to vary, obviously. But I have to say that no matter what that pitch is, even if it's a 30-second that you've got somebody that's asked you, hey, what is it that you do? You need to talk about the problem. And that's going to be very counterintuitive. It feels very awkward because people always just want to tell about the solution. Oh, my great technology does this, or my software does this, or my idea does this. Our natural inclination is to talk about the solution. But in all reality, what you should be talking about is the problem that you're solving. So when you're doing your pitch, there are some things that you must include. Number one, what is the problem that you are solving? And this also may sound obvious, but it's more than that. So even if we take a look at SolusGuard, the problem that we're solving is we have employers who have employees who work alone in dangerous situations, and they need to keep them safe. Okay, well, that's the problem. Well, is it the problem? What is really the problem? Well, that depends on the customer, but most likely the problem is if that employee gets injured or hurt on the job or killed. Nobody likes that, but in some jobs that's the case. What happens? Well, you don't want your employees hurt in any way, right? So that's a problem. Also, from the employer's perspective, if something happens, then the business is held liable and responsible. That's a problem. But even you dig deeper. Well, if they're held liable and responsible, maybe they're going to get fined. Maybe they're going to get shut down. Maybe their employees aren't going to want to work there and they're going to have troubles hiring people. So now we're really digging deeper and deeper and deeper into the problem that you're solving for the customer. And that's the sort of thing that you need to do. act like you're, or have somebody act like they're a 5-year-old kid that keeps saying, but why? But why? But why? And that's what you want to do. Dig deep, deep, deep. What is the problem that you're solving? Because that's what you're going to communicate to people. When you talk to them about this is the problem that we have, and then you move on. At that point, you move on to how does your solution uniquely solve that problem? In our particular case, we are able to say, we work for organization, or we help organizations that have employees that work alone in dangerous jobs. Employers are looking for ways to protect them, etc. What we can specifically do is create a customized solution that is end to end, that does X, Y, and Z. And again, I get that safety isn't probably the sexiest thing out there, but whether it's our company or your idea, it's irrelevant. You have to start the problem and the solution and how it uniquely solves that. Because I guarantee you, don't be telling me that, hey, we're the only ones that do this. You're not the only ones that do this. You are not. You may not know about other companies that are doing it, or maybe other companies are doing it in a similar way. So you might uniquely solve this problem. An example of that in our company, people will say, well, they already got a phone. They don't need a panic button, or they don't need check-in software because they've already got a phone. Well, that is a competitor of ours, besides the fact there are other competitors. So what we say, how we uniquely solve it, is if you have a phone, you can't get to your phone, unlock it if you're being attacked. So a wearable device that you can click quickly to get help is how we uniquely solve it. So those are the sorts of things to think about. Once you've got your problem clearly identified, you've got your solution, but how is it unique? How is it different than how other people are doing it? And then why are you, or your group or your team, maybe you're alone today, maybe it's just an idea, but why are you the one that's going to solve this problem? What is it about your life experience? What is it about your knowledge? What is it that you are the one to be able to do it? And unless you're a charity or you don't plan on this going anywhere, it's business. So you have to show how you're going to make money off of this. How are you going to make profit? Profit is not a negative word. I had one of my very early Aura customers said to me, because I was sort of, you almost feel bad about making money in the early days. And she said to me, Serese, never apologize for charging for your product and for making money. She said, because if you are not a profitable company, then you can't give me a product that can save my life. And this was actually Gladys, and we saved her life. So her perspective is be profitable, keep doing your business, but also just for you and your purposes, as you're telling people, how are you going to make money? And so what does that business model look like? So you need to have a business model. And I should pause here to say that if you're the kind of person that is the tech person or the idea person, and you say, but I'm not the money person, I'm not the business person, two things. Number one, learn, because there's no opting out. You need to understand the business. And number two, if you really are the tech person, find a co-founder that's the business person. But you have to address this. This has to be addressed. You're running a business. You're not going to make it if you don't run your business properly. And then the other must is you must include an ask. Well, why are you telling this person about it? What do you want from them? Again, if it's a government program, you're asking for funding. It's an investor, you're asking for investment. If it's a customer, you're asking for the business. But your pitch should be about something. And even if it's just a general person, maybe you're asking for their feedback, or maybe you're asking them for a referral or a reference, something like that, but you're asking for something. So what is your ask? So no matter what you do in a pitch, in my opinion, everybody does their own pitching. In my opinion, your pitch must include these things. Now, beyond that, because you're going to say, well, I saw pitches and it included this and included that. Well, you know what? There's about 1 million things after that that you could include in a pitch. And I've seen all sorts of pitches include all sorts of things. Well, it depends. How much time do you have? Who are you talking to? Back to the original slide. Who are you talking to? What's the purpose? What's the time? Do you have slides, etc.? So I just put up a couple more here that you might include in your pitch. So you might want to let them know the traction. What have you accomplished so far? Well, we have sold X amount of devices. We're in the market. We've sold this amount of devices to this many companies. We saved this many lives, etc. Or you might say, I'm just at the idea stage. I'm just kind of working this out. Or I have a prototype and I'm looking for, the next step. So let the person know where you're the stage that you're at and what you've accomplished so far. And then what your plan is to, if you're, especially if you're pre-market, like you're just at the idea stage or your prototype stage, what do you need to do to get it to market or to get it to the next step? So you want to show kind of that evolution of where you're going. Your pitch can include that. Again, depends on the circumstance. The other thing, back to the business aspect of it, is how are you going to get customers? What's your plan? What's your marketing plan? What's your sales plan? What you got so far, what you've learned from it, if you do have sales, but what's the go-to-market strategy? That's the big buzzwords. If there's anything in the startup community, it's all these sayings that are mostly a load of crap, but you kind of get used to them. But the question is, what's your go-to-market strategy? How are you going to get there? How are you going to get customers? Have you thought it through? Or maybe you haven't, but if you've thought it through, who are your customers and how are you going to reach them? How are you going to get their attention? How are you going to sell to them? And then I did talk before about why you're uniquely positioned, but sometimes you go in even deeper, why you personally are the one that's going to solve it and kind of digging into that a little deeper. And then when you have that ask, okay, you're at an investor and you're saying, I'm raising $100,000, or in our case, we're raising $1 million. Well, they want to know if I'm going to invest in you and I'm going to give you this money, or as a government agency, I'm going to give you some grant or whatever the case may be. What are you going to do with it? What's your plan? Are you just going to spend it on parties and whatever else? Probably not. But you want to show them it's going to go to marketing or advertising or hiring people or whatnot. So what are you going to do with it? So again, the two components, just backing up one, what you must include, the problem you're solving, how you're going to solve it, why you, how you're going to make money in the ask. Just include those. Beyond that, might include more. And if you Google, how to do a pitch, there'll be 50 others. But we're going to stop here. This just gives you an idea of what you might include. No matter what, though, do not make the mistake that this is a one and done thing. There's always a goal to that pitch. And what that goal should be is getting to the next stage. Don't fall into the trap of trying to do it all in one, covering off all the bases, because you're going to overwhelm the person. They're going to tune out. It's just not going to go anywhere. So be purposeful about what it is that you want at this stage. So if I'm pitching for investment, my first goal is to get them excited and aware of what our company is. So I'm not going to cover a lot. I'm probably just going to do the musts. But then my goal in the next appointment is to start to build out the understanding of what it is that we do. But I know that the goal after that is to close the deal and get the money. But I'm not doing that all, even though I say at the beginning, my ask is the money. But my goal really is to get them to the next stage. So that's an investment. It could be for a million different reasons. If you're looking for a co-founder, remember I talked about looking for a co-founder. It's kind of like dating. I don't have a co-founder, but I know lots of people that do. I do have like some very key staff that have been with me for years. But you don't start dating by, hey, this is great to meet you. Let's go for a drink. And by the way, can we get married? I don't think that works very well. So what you do is you get to know somebody. Well, that's the same if you're looking for a co-founder. You want to share your idea. You want to tell them a little bit about it. You want to see if they're intrigued, and you want to say, hey, I am looking for a co-founder. I'm talking to a number of different people. What do you think? And then you meet with them again and you talk about it a bit more. On those, I would highly recommend, based on what I've seen with the other co-founders, is that you want to spend a lot of time before you choose your co-founder. But again, your goal is to get to the next stage. So again, whatever pitch you're doing for whatever reason, your goal is just to keep that moving along. All right. Unfortunately, I can't see anybody, so I can't tell if this is making sense. So I see some laugh emojis from time to time. So great. Okay. And a thumbs up. Thank you, Merle. All right. So being prepped and ready in advance is the key. So know what you want to get out of it before you go into it, if you can. If it's off the cuff, you've met somebody when just by circumstance, you have to have, a 30-second or a 1-minute pitch ready to go. And that's generally just general information. But if you do have meetings prepped or you are going into something, think to yourself, what do I want to get out of this? What's my plan? And that's really going to set the tone for everything else. This is kind of some general thoughts and ideas around pitching. I've seen many people, and it's totally fine if this is you're just getting started and you're doing pitching for the very first time, not a problem. But I've seen people say, show slides, and they'll say the problem, the solution. Okay. I mean, that's obvious. That's all right. But it is a lot more compelling when you tell a story. So, for instance, we'll tell a story about a business, and in our case, it's generally about Corrections Canada and about parole officers. And we tell the story of a parole officer and the danger that they go through in their job, and the circumstances and what we can do. And so this is a day in the life of a parole officer and the technology and how they use it. That resonates with people. They're like, okay, I get it. I understand. First of all, I didn't know a parole officer doesn't carry a gun, and they go and they meet with some of the most dangerous people in our society. So this is how our tools can keep them safe. That resonates with people. And so telling that story. So how can you soften the situation by telling your story in a way that's compelling? And I have to say again, less is more, less is more. So just not overwhelming, but just very thoughtfully going through that story. And again, knowing the difference between, are you entertaining on a stage and trying to win money, or are you actually educating somebody because this is important that they have the foundational information for them to invest in you, to give you a grant or to go into business with you. Very, very different. If you're on a stage entertaining, there's a lot more you can be liberal with, and you remember your audience, right? You need to know your audience. So are they there to be entertained? Are they there to learn? Like for instance, today to me is like a big pitch because I'm educating you. I'm doing a little bit of entertaining, I hope, because if I'm too boring, you're going to be snoozing off and I want to lose everybody. But really, it's about.
It's a good thing that I'm muted because I've been laughing uproariously through
Okay.
most of this.
Okay, good. I'm at least entertaining one person. That's great. So you have to keep it interesting for sure. I'm not saying it's one or the other, but just that balance between entertaining and educating between the two. All right. No matter what. Okay. You're going to start this pitching process. I've changed a lot over the years and over the circumstances. I think I'm getting better. I don't know, practice, they say, makes perfect. I'm far from perfect, but I've found over the years that there's just a tremendous amount of value in going through the exercise. So even if you're not there yet, you're just got an idea, or you're whatever the case may be, there's value in starting to create a pitch because it gets you thinking about those steps. The problem that you're solving and the why. You should be doing that now at the earliest stages of your earliest idea. If you don't have a real problem to solve, you don't got a product. I'm telling you that right out of the gates. So the value of going through creating a pitch, whether you got anybody to pitch to or not, is irrelevant. So just do it, because the whole journey of this your life cycle as an entrepreneur is going to be of value to you. Because I can say very specifically that at every step of the way for me, even in if you consider Aura to be a failure, at every step of the way, I've learned a lot. And I've built on what I learned in my early Aura days to where I'm at today, pitching for $1 million. Um, and over time, I've tweaked my pitches. I've modified what I'd said. Just it's been a whole journey for me. I'm not. I think I'm funny. Merle thinks I'm funny, which is great. My husband does not think I'm funny, but um, something that I've observed with comedians when they do their stand-up routine is that what you see on TV is not where they started. What they started is with practicing by themselves and to friends and family and all of that, and then get for an audience and they listen to where people laugh and where there's silence, and they just keep trying things. Not that we're comedians, but that process has a lot of merit. So just keep going. If you're saying something and people are looking at you like totally, that just went over my head, change your language, change the approach, figure it out until you start to get people nodding and giving you that feedback that they're understanding, or asking questions is another one that you've kind of got that engagement and people are getting it. If they're asking questions, not the questions like, what? I didn't, not that. But if they're asking good probing questions or next stage questions, that's all good indications that you're on the right path. But I've also found in this journey is that as you go about, you're going to come up with great nuggets that you're like, oh, I got to keep saying that because that really seems to resonate people. Don't be afraid to throw out the stuff that doesn't work. And then every once in a while, you have an epiphany like, oh, if I say it this way, then that's really going to work. So that's what I mean about this journey. You're not going to be perfect out of the gates. Just keep working and iterating on it and figuring it out. Just keep going. But no matter what you do in this whole process, no matter what, don't look at this and say, oh, Serese is really good at pitching, or I saw this person pitch, and that's how I need to be. Um, don't don't fall into that trap because you're not me, I'm not you. My approach is different. Just be you because no one does you better than you. So be yourself. If you're not an entertainer, that's okay. The more true to you are, true to yourself that you are, the better you will be in a pitch. And you just find what works for you. All right. I am going to just pause here for a moment. I'm going to say this right now, and I'll probably say it at the end after questions. So if you've got some questions, I'd like to hear them. Um, I would like to offer anybody watching now or later to reach out to me this way or on LinkedIn. Reach out, just say though how you've heard of me, um, because I get lots of LinkedIn requests. I don't accept them all. But if you say who you are and how you heard of me, love for you to reach out. If you have any questions or you want any help, this is what our community is all about. And I mean that very sincerely, that I'm here to help and assist and be a part of the community. So I'd love to give back. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Mel.
Thank you very much. It's a, well, like I said, it's a damn good thing that I was muted because I was laughing uproariously through part of that. Oh, that was just fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording. We already have questions coming in on the chat, which is fantastic. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you very much for being with us today. And those of us who are here live, we get to continue. So that's why you have to come to a live session. Huh?